Hello, I'm Tony Vlahos for ExecuNet. Ever wonder why some people are so great at making connections? They seem to know exactly how to grow their influence and impact and work their connections to get that new executive job, advance within the company, and generally find great success in life. Well, wonder no more because my guest today has written an awesome new book to help you out. Michelle Lederman is the CEO of Executive Essentials. She was named by Forbes as one of the top 25 networking professionals and the leading professional speaker on the subject of building real relationships. Michelle, of course, is also the best-selling author of the 2011 blockbuster, The 11 Laws of Likability, and her upcoming release is called The Connector's Advantage: 7 Mindsets to Grow Your Influence and Impact. It's a how-to guide to supercharging your network, and it's out in March of 2019. And the author joins me now. Hi, Michelle.
Hey, Tony.
Good to see you as always.
Great to be back.
Awesome. So let's get right into it. I hear this from a lot of executives. When it comes to being a great connector, they wonder whether they, as an introvert, have a disadvantage. Do I need to be an extrovert or a high powered or executive or anything else to be great at connecting? What's your answer to that? No.
No, no, absolutely not. One of the sections in the book is called The Introvert's Edge, which is based on a podcast by Matthew Pollard, who was one of the contributors to the book. And I do really believe that introverts have an edge when it comes to connection because they're natural listeners.
Mhm.
Right? Those extroverts, we like to talk a lot, and you need to listen and be curious to be able to find those points of connection. So that plus the fact that introverts are actually better in the one-on-one, that's where their comfort zone is, and that's where connection really forms. So not at all. We just need to kind of think about how they want to do it,
Mm.
so that they're not holding themselves back or viewing it as it has to be done a certain way. But introverts have the edge when it comes to connection.
See, I didn't know that. You would think that if you're a great talker, that means you're a great connector, but not necessarily, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about a topic that is near and dear to many of the executives in our audience, which is job search, right? We know that 85% of executive level positions are found through their connections. What are the skills and habits of expert connectors when it comes to finding new work?
So, what I talk about in the book are 7 mindsets, and they're not this mindset for this type of task. It's kind of the way in which we think and approach people and approach our life. So, whether it is getting a new job at a new company or even getting a promotion with your own company, those connections are going to make the difference. There's another statistic out there that if you have an active mentor relationship, you are 70% more likely to get a promotion within 1 year.
Really?
Yeah, isn't that great?
How does that work? Tell me about this.
Well, when you are actively in a relationship trying to work and build and grow yourself,
Mhm.
you have somebody who is giving you some of those mindsets to help you ask for what you want, right? So one of the mindsets of a connector is to have a clear vision, know
Mhm.
what you want, and know how to ask for it.
Terrific. Yep. So talk to me more about the mindset of someone who already has a lot of great connections. I mean, you've done that work, and of course, you want to nurture those, right? You don't want to form them and then abandon them. What kind of mindset do you need to do that kind of building?
One of the mindsets that I personally struggle the most with, and that people are really resonating with, is the mindset of abundance.
Hmm.
And I originally called it coming from a place of abundance versus scarcity. And then I just got rid of the scarcity word because, scarcity is scary.
Right.
But scarcity also makes a lot of sense, especially for somebody like me who I grew up without financial security. And I grew up at a time, even after college, my first job was at a time when there was only one female partner in the accounting firm. I'm a recovering CPA. That wasn't mentioned in the bio, but uh,
We're
I
not going to hold that against you.
yeah, I spent 10 years in finance. And when there's only one female partner, a lot of the interaction between the women coming up in the ranks was very cutthroat. I can't help you because you would take my spot type of attitude. And that's a scarce attitude.
Mhm.
And the mindset of abundance is not saying, oh, everything's going to be coming up roses and daffodils. It's not Pollyanna, but instead it's believing in the possibility. So just because there's only one female partner now doesn't mean that there won't be more later.
Mhm.
I believe in the possibility of more. I believe that there is enough. And coming from a place of abundance is viewing everyone out there, all those connections, as strategic partners and not competitors. and really kind of,
Beautifully said.
yeah,
Yeah.
thinking of the collaboration potential.
Hmm. Let's continue on that theme. When you are in networking situations, whether it's a cocktail party or you're, quote, working a large room, what are some of the missteps or mishaps that you've observed many people make when it comes to attempting to form that first connection?
When we talk, one of the mindsets is, of course, being social and curious. And
Hmm.
they go together in the mindset because I don't want people, especially those introverts that are listening, to think that being social means being a social butterfly or live life of the party. That's not at all what I'm saying. It's being social and curious. The social is putting yourself out there, putting yourself into situations in which you have the opportunity to meet people. It doesn't have to be huge events, right? But you're at least being in that environment. And the curious is what enables the connection.
Mm.
So asking questions that you actually want to know the answer to, uh, being willing to give a little self-disclosure. So you're going to ask questions that you're also willing to share a little information as well, because there's a and give and take in that exchange, right?
Right.
You actually asked me about mistakes. So I get excited about what I want you to do. But okay, a couple of mistakes. One is not going.
Hmm.
Now, I give you a free pass. Everyone gets at least one free pass. You're not in the mood. It's not a good day. You get to go home. I give it to you. But sometimes that becomes too comfortable, or the type of events we go to, or the way in which we socialize becomes too comfortable. So one of the mistakes we make is not venturing into new environments and not stretching ourselves a little out of our comfort zone.
Hmm.
And then another mistake is that people think that it has to look a certain way, that they have to be loud or be boisterous. No. Coming from somebody who is loud and boisterous, I need to tone it down to enable the connection. So don't think that the way you do it is wrong.
Right.
The way you connect is the right way for you to connect, but
Mm.
continue to stretch.
Right. Absolutely. So we talked about curiosity, connecting in the way that's right for you, and not necessarily being loud and boisterous if it's not who you are. Do those tenets change at all? Does the road change at all when you're, say, attempting to make connections through social media, like LinkedIn, where many of us, of course, now and then hang out? What's your take on how to form connections on LinkedIn?
Personalize and be
Mhm.
specific, right?
Okay, tell me about that. Yeah.
So if you were going out and you were finding a new connection, like today, I was at my chiropractor this morning and he mentioned somebody who sounds really like me. And I asked him for his name and I'm going to go look him up on social media. And I'm going to say, my chiropractor listens to you
Mm.
and I wanted to find out more about you. I'm going to tell him the story of why I'm reaching out. If you don't have that story, you might look at some shared connections. And I always look for the person that seems out of place. Like, how do you know this guy I went to camp with when I was 12 years old? You know, you're not in the same field. And so I'll ask that question and I'll actually look to generate a conversation and create an exchange. If somebody links into me, 95% of the time, they will get a response and it will say, well, how'd you find me? Or how do you know this person? Or I saw this in your profile. And just something to get that conversation going.
Mhm.
And when you start in one environment, the goal is to move it to another. So if I meet you face to face, my goal might not be to move it to social media, but that's another point of contact to extend the connection.
Right.
If I meet you in social media, my goal might be to find a way to bring us off of the virtual platform.
Mhm. So once you've made some of those connections, say in social media, can you share with me how much time and energy, if you can quantify it in hours, do you spend, say, weekly maintaining, nurturing, cultivating connections? Is there a formula for that?
That's a really interesting question. And my gut response is no, but that's my style.
Mhm.
And so, what I would say to people out there is if you need to have that structure, to have that habit, then create that for yourself. And I always recommend finding time that exists in your calendar that is underutilized. That commuting time is a great time for reach out connection. Riding the train with somebody. I was at a meeting and I just didn't have time to talk to her at the meeting. I'm like, well, let's take the train back to because we lived in the same area. Let's take the train back together. So we chatted on the commute. Walking the dog. I met somebody at the dog park that I ended up hiring. um, there's all this fine time, and the least productive hour of the work week is Fridays from 4 to 5 p.m.
Hmm.
So Fridays at 4 to 5 p.m., put it in your calendar. That's a great time to just start sending some emails or make a phone call. Have lunch with somebody once a week. Look for those little habits of things that you're doing anyway. I go to a boot camp and they have circuits. So I'll go to boot camp and there's like this, there's other authors there, there's a PR person there, there's, and so it's a place to catch up. And it could be people that are not in my field. It's just, oh, that mommy friend, oh, my son's best friend's mom. It's a place to have those points of contact and strengthen and elongate those relationships.
Yeah, and it really sounds like there's this serendipity factor, right? You put yourself in certain situations, but in others you sort of find yourself and you seize that moment is part of what I'm picking up from you, which is fantastic. I guess if I were someone who didn't feel especially comfortable doing those things, and I know what you're going to say, do it anyway, right? What one thing could I do today to become a better connector?
Well, at first, I wanted to say you were spot on with what you were saying there. We are always networking. We're always connecting. And I think sometimes, my brother-in-law came into my office when I was writing my book, and he goes, "Well, what's the difference between networking your first book and being a connector, this new book?" And I said, "Well, networking is something you do. A connector is someone that you are."
Hmm.
And one of the things I talk about is the spectrum of connector. There's very few people out there that are non-connectors. You, Tony, are a connector. Where you fall on the spectrum is where you are now. You don't need to get to the top of the spectrum. You want to see where you want to end up. And the way we grow that is twofold. Our breadth and depth, right? So more connections or more connections in a certain niche. And then it's the responsive versus the initiation. So are we responding to people reaching out, responding to people requesting help, or are we initiating adding value? Are we initiating the reach out? So those little shifts can move you up the spectrum.
Right.
But we are always connecting. I mean, at the supermarket, at the bathroom line. I mean, it's always.
That's terrific. And I can't think of anyone who needed to write this book for us more than you, because I've known you to be that connector like forever. And it's a joy to learn that there's a release, and everyone, please check it out. It is called, again, The Connector's Advantage, 7 Mindsets to Grow Your Influence and Impact. It's available in March wherever fine books are sold. And we'll be talking more to Michelle and hearing more from her as the book takes off. And I'm really sure it will. So thank you so much for making time to talk to me today.
Thanks for having me on.
Okay. Bye for now.